In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how I bought my first rental property at 25 years old. I'm going to give you an inside view on the step-by-step process I used to get my first rental property and how you could do it too. Hi everyone, my name is Alex Epstein and I'm studying to get my real estate license. Whether you're interested in real estate, want to become a real estate agent, or just want to follow along my journey, please subscribe to keep up to date with my content and follow along with the journey. Back in November of 2024, when I was 25 years old, I closed on my first property. It wasn't luck or family connections that got me there. In fact, I'm going to pull back the curtains and guide you through step by step on what I did to achieve this. I'm going to go through how I found the deal, how I financed it, how I got it fixed up, how I worked through the surprises, and what lessons I'll carry into my next purchase. If you want a real world playbook on how to do these, stick around. Number one, the search process. I narrowed my search down to the greater Sacramento area. Why did I do this? It's because my parents already own rental properties in that area and we already have connections there. Not only do we know some people in that location, but we also have some connections to contractors and other vendors that can help us. One thing you'll learn about real estate is that once you find the right people and you get the systems and teams in place, it's a lot easier than when you're just starting out. So I took this to my advantage and I used the network that we have there. And that's one of the reasons I decided to purchase there. Another reason is simply because of the price point. I could not afford to buy something closer to where I lived in San Francisco at the time. So I decided to buy somewhere that was drivable and that I can go up to at any point, but somewhere where I could afford. That's the reason why I chose Sacramento and I chose it over the Bay Area or even out-of-state investing. So one thing I recommend that everyone does is to define your criteria for what you're looking for. Some people call this a buy box, and my buy box was to buy a single family property with no HOA, and I wanted to find something for under $500,000 that had built-in equity. What that means is that I wanted to find a good deal and I wanted to buy something under market value. In order to do so, I fully expected to be able to get into a fixer, which is, if you're not familiar with what a fixer is, it means a fixer-upper or something that needs some work. Some good old TLC. This process in total probably took me around a year. However, during that year, I was not always serious in putting out offers, but I would say that in total, from the first offer I put to the last one got accepted, it took about a year. And in order to find this deal, I worked with real estate agents. I also went to networking groups and met people that had properties off market. The person I purchased the home from was actually a real estate agent that I found through a networking forum. And we kept in touch and I told him what I was looking for and he sent me a couple deals over the year that I was looking. Eventually, he came along a property that he was able to purchase from a family friend, and he had another project going on at that time and he had wanted to put his attention to that, so he was willing to sell it to me. And the numbers actually worked for both of us, where he got to make some money and not put that much work into it, and I got to buy a property under market value, and I took on a project, but it was exactly what I was looking for. So in terms of the tools and any data I use to find the property, again, a real estate agent has access to the MLS, which is a listing service all realtors have access to, where they buy and sell properties, or I should say it's where they list properties to purchase and sell. And then I also used Facebook groups and networking forums to meet people who brought me deals. Some were on and some were off market. And those are the main ways. The key takeaway here is that I recommend you come up with a buy box so that you actually have something narrowed down for what you're looking for. Because if you don't narrow things down, it's going to drive you crazy on how many things are available out there. 2, financing. In order to get my financing in order, I was pre-approved with a mortgage broker who could represent multiple different banks or servicers. I obviously looked at many options, but at the end of the day, I chose a mortgage broker because I liked the flexibility of them being able to work with multiple servicers or lenders that were able to give me a loan. One thing I recommend to people is that if you haven't already and you're even somewhat serious in getting your first property, I recommend getting pre-approved. This process is a lot easier and simpler than you think, And pretty much what it is, written verification of a lender or servicer going through your financial picture and giving you a limit as to what property you can afford. Without being pre-approved, you can't do much in real estate, and the process is very easy. The biggest concern people have with this is that they might check your credit, and I can't remember if it's a hard check or soft check. They do have to obviously check your credit, but it's not going to drop your credit score much, and it's something that you really should consider doing. So for my purchase, I went with a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. My interest rate was 6.125%, and I was able to put 10% down, which is lower than the 20% down industry standard. Funny enough, in my last video, I talked about the myth about you have to put 20% down in real estate. So I'm a living example that you don't need to. One thing I should note about working with my lender is that I spoke with multiple lenders and got their rates and how much they would charge before I made the decision on who to choose. This is something that doesn't take long, and I recommend everyone does. I always recommend shopping around. I was lucky, and out of the 10 plus mortgage brokers or lenders I spoke with, only one of them told me about a program that I may qualify for. That was a down payment assistance program. And lucky enough, I actually qualified and was able to utilize this. So I do recommend that you have a list of questions you ask when you're interviewing the lenders. One question that I recommend you ask is if there are any loan programs out there that you may be able to qualify for. So I'm going to go through the numbers in a little bit, but just so you have an idea, when I purchased the property, I knew going into it that I was going to have a pretty significant rehab cost because the house was a fixer-upper and it was a little beaten down and needed some TLC. If you don't know what TLC means, it means tender love and care, and it's expression people use in real estate when a property needs some love. 3, real numbers. The purchase price for my property was $395,000. This was for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath property in the city of Citrus Heights, California, which is in the greater Sacramento area. The square footage is right around 1,900 square feet, but that square footage includes the garage, which was converted to office space. So right now it's actually locked off or not being utilized. In the future, I'm planning on renovating that area so that it's its own separate ADU studio or 1-bedroom apartment unit that could be rented out and utilized. When I first purchased the property, my expectations were that when I do rent the property, the rents would be around $2,700 a month, and what I actually got was $2,550. So as you can see, the rents were a little bit lower than my expectations. Luckily, I had enough cushion in my numbers that the difference did not worry me, and I'm ultimately happy with what happened. Currently, my payment every month for PITI is about $2,700 a month. My rent is $2,550 a month. I'm self-managing, so I don't have a property manager. And while I did just renovate the place after purchasing it, I still keep a little bit around every month for maintenance reserves and for vacancy reserves, meaning that I have extra money that I put into the account for this property because the expectation is at one point there will be a vacancy and there will be some deferred maintenance that I need to do, whether it's something as simple and small as a toilet leaking or some capex like a roof that needs to be replaced. As you can see with the numbers I just gave you, every month I'm losing approximately $200 to $400 in cash flow, but I'm owning an appreciating asset that I put a little money down on, and that's giving me tax breaks. So while I am technically losing a couple $100 every single month, I am getting tax benefits and I'm owning an appreciating asset that I believe will far outweigh the fact that I have to pay a couple $100 a month out of my pocket to own the property. The key takeaway here is that there are lots of ways to make money in real estate and that you should definitely do your due diligence and run all the numbers and scenarios before getting into a property, especially if it's a rental and your goal here is to make money and it's not just something that you're going to live in. You want to make sure that when you run your numbers, you're including all the things that could happen and that you know eventually will happen that a lot of people don't account for. For example, any capex or capital expenditures like a roof needing replacing, which may cost $15,000 to $30,000 in and of itself. 4, lessons learned. Well, I'll start off with what went right. What went right was that I found a property that fit my criteria and it ended up all working out. I'm glad I was able to find a fixer upper in my desired location with cash flow that does not kill me every month. That was the ultimate goal. I know some of you may think it's crazy to own a property where you're losing money every month, but don't forget, you're owning an appreciating asset, and all these numbers that I gave you are before the tax benefits. Also, any of you more experienced investors or people that have been in the real estate game for a while, you know that cash flow in California is very difficult, if not impossible to find. There are ways to do it, but typically you have to get pretty creative. And I just wanted a normal, easygoing single family rental long term for this. What went wrong? Moving on to what went wrong, obviously my rent calculations were not totally accurate. The property stayed on the market to be rented a little longer than I expected, and I got a little less rent. Also, the renovation was a little bit more expensive than I expected. I'm not surprised by the number. I was kind of expecting it, but I was hoping to come in a little bit smaller. I think my goal was to come in around 25 or 30,000, and I think I ended up around 35,000. And one lesson there is that when the house is totally beat up and you see multiple areas in which it seemed like things were not done correctly the first time, some call this like a DIY house. That could be a red flag in the sense that you should assume if multiple things were not done correctly, probably most, if not all, the things in the house were not done completely correctly. I kind of had that expectation going into it, but I didn't realize how many things that needed to be done. So I guess the lesson there is just to be more thorough and know your numbers getting into it. Definitely give yourself a cushion when it comes to the amount of time a rehab is going to take. I've never been involved in a renovation where everything went correctly and there was no problems. 5, what's next? My goal is to buy my second property, but right now it's not in the cards. The reason for that is because I left my previous job and I'm currently technically unemployed. So while I do want to get into my next property, that's not something that's possible in the immediate future. So while I am continuing to be active and look at deals here and there, I'm not even close to as active as I previously was. And my goal here is to get my real estate license. I want to start helping people that way so that I can support myself. And once I have the business grown up and I have some income, I'm definitely going to be looking into buying my next property. When I do buy my next property, I'm just going to be that much more prepared for what's to come. I'm going to take all the lessons I learned from my first property and I'm going to be much better for it. The key takeaway here is that once you get your first property, the second, third, fourth, and so on are going to be a lot easier. Not only are you going to have learned from the first one, but hopefully if your first one goes well, then you're going to have money you can use from that property onto your next one. And in the meantime, your net worth should grow and hopefully everything's looking good. Getting your first deal done definitely builds confidence. You're going to build a network of people that you can utilize for your next deal. So the doors are open for your next opportunity. And there you have it. That's a real breakdown of how I bought my first property at the age of 25 years old in November of 2024. We went through searching for the property, financing the property, the real numbers, and the lessons I learned along the way. I hope hearing my firsthand experience helps you along the way so that you feel more comfortable and that you're ready to go after it and get your first property. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can see my content moving forward, and let me know if you have any feedback. I'm still new to this and I would love to grow with you and build a community here and to improve. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.